Welcome to this week's moonLight of Emuna, Parshas Mishpatim. This week's learning should be a schus for Refuah Shlema for Chana Masha Bas Vilcha, Shmuel Shen Zayim Bechev Chavam, Nach Mordechai ben Ofira, and Lili Nishmas Henya Bas Yechiel Mechel, and Ratza Bas Menachem Mendel. So this week's Parsha, every time we come to Parshas Mishpatim, it's a little bit of a letdown. We're coming off of such high Parshas Shmos, we hear about the Shibud, and then in Va'era we start to see the miracles of the Makos, and Bo, we finish the end of the Makos, and the Jews finally leave Mitzrayim. B'Shalach, we have the splitting of Yam Suf. Yisro is the greatest revelation in human history, and we're given the Torah. Moshe comes down with the Aseres HaDibros, and we have this unbelievable build-up that we're so excited about. And then we come to Parshas Mishpatim, and we get into very technical details of monetary rules. It seems very mundane, very base. Like it seems like after all of these epiphanies and all these amazing moments in Jewish history, and now we get into technical details. And there's a lot written about this, why we go from this highest moment, Matan Torah. There was never a revelation like this in world history. This is like the greatest moment of Hashem speaking directly to human beings, and to 3 million of them at a time. And it begs some explanation of why we go into this, and many explanations are offered. But besides the fact that we go in Parshas Mishpatim into such mundane matters of commerce and economics, the first topic that's discussed in Parshas Mishpatim seems to even be like the lowest thing. It's Ve'ela Mishpatim Asher Tazim Lefneim. These are the rules, the laws that you should put before them. Ki Sikna Eved Ivri. When you buy a Jewish slave, a Jewish servant, Sheish Shanim Yavad, he should work for 6 years. Of Ashviz Yetze L'chav Shechinam. And in the 6th year he goes out free. And it seems like this is like really like the lowest. This is, we know that in Eved Ivri sometimes it was a person selling himself, but very often it was somebody who stole. He's really hit rock bottom. He's at the lowest. So we're going from the highest high of Parshas Yisro of Matan Torah. We go to the lowest, a Jew who found himself stealing. We assume he was very desperate, but he certainly hit rock bottom. That he can't pay back, and Bezdin is going to sell him as a slave. And it seems such a stark contrast. Sort of Label Eger in his Sefer Teres Emes offers an unbelievable idea. Also, the other question that we have, which we always have, we talk about here quite a lot, is the fact that that we know that the Torah is given, every word of Torah is given for every single Jew in every single generation, and it's very hard for us to relate to this idea of an Eved Ivri. We don't have this nowadays. We don't sell Jews into slavery. So it seems, how does this relate to us? So Label Eger offers the following idea. He says that last week's parsha we had the Aseres HaDibros. We heard it at Har Sinai, and we know that in the Aseres HaDibros, the 10 utterances, often translated as 10 commandments, but really 10 utterances, included all Taryag mitzvahs, all 613 mitzvahs. Now, if we look at the first mitzvah, the first mitzvah in the Aseres HaDibros is Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am Hashem your God. Says Reb Leibler, this is the idea that Hashem, we have to know the concept that Hashem has enough for everybody, for every one of our needs, every single person throughout history. Every single thing that we needed, Hashem has the ability to give that to us, right? We don't have to, and therefore we have to know, because of that we don't have to submit ourselves to anything else or to any other reasons, not to a boss, not to now we may have to go take a job. We know that we have a shtadlus, but we don't have to. We don't look to others to be the means of our salvation or the means of our support. We know that every single thing comes to Hashem, and that is encompassed in the first of the Aseres HaDibros. Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am Hashem your God. I took you out of Mitzrayim. Hashem takes care of every single thing, and therefore a person doesn't have to submit to others. And what's the second of the Aseres HaDibros? You shouldn't have other gods. What is that? That's the negative side of the first. The positive commandment is Hashem says, I am Hashem your God, look to me for everything. The second one is, don't forget and accept somebody else's authority or submit yourself to somebody else. Yes, you have a boss, you have to show up to work, but don't start to believe that this person controls your destiny, that or that this person is going to be good to you, things will be good. Everything comes from Hashem. So it's two sides of the same coin. The first one being, I am Hashem your God, everything comes from me. And the second one is, don't submit yourself, don't impose upon yourself other gods. Don't make other people higher than you. Know that everything comes from Hashem. This person may be what your hishtadlus requires you to deal with, but don't for a minute stop and think that this person is where I'm going to get my salvation. If this deal closes, then I'll have parnasa. If I get this job, of course we have to do what we're supposed to do, but that's not where it comes from. Therefore, says Rabbi Leibela, this is why this is the first mitzvah that we get after Matan Torah. The Torah says, "Ki sikna eved ivri." When you buy an eved ivri, v'ashvi yetzel lachav shechinam, in the seventh year he'll go free. It's to teach us. We know that this story of the eved ivri comes up again later on in Parshas Bahar. And in Parshas Bahar, at the end of Parshas Bahar, it says, "Ki li b'nei Yisrael avodim." The Jewish people, Hashem says, the Jewish people are my slaves. They're my servants. They're my slaves. Nobody else's. Right? Meaning that the Jewish people are not meshubed. They're not subjugated to anything else other than Hashem. Hashem is the only master that we have. Therefore, even if a person forgets this and he submits himself to somebody else's authority, or he relies on somebody else, he makes that mistake that he's not supposed to make. Says the pasuk in this week's parsha, the second pasuk in the parsha of Ashvius, in the seventh year, Yetze L'chav Shechina, means that even if a person allowed himself to get subjected to something else, and it doesn't always have to be a person, it could be his pursuit of money, his pursuit of other base desires, illicit desires and base urges. But a person, even when he gets stuck in these things, he has to remember, Ki li b'nei Yisrael avodim. We have to remember that we need to go free. Just like the Eved Ivri, he fell to this lowest place. But but he goes free in the seventh year. We have to look for ways to free ourselves from these subjugations that we've imposed upon ourselves, or maybe that others have imposed upon us. But we have to always remember that we can always return to being Hashem's servant. And that's why this mitzvah of Eved Ivri, even though the way that the Torah is describing it and the way that the Gemara talks about Eved Ivri is not, we don't keep it nowadays that way, but it's still relevant to us today in our day and age, that even the mitzvah, we know that even though the mitzvah is not being kept the way that it was then, but the Torah is eternal, and the source of the mitzvah, the root of this mitzvah, is that a person has to throw off other shibudim, other subjugations, and he shouldn't submit to anything other than Hashem, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And even if we forgot, we had a lapse, and we did, well, for whatever reason, we can go Yetze L'chav Shechina, we can go free, and we can return ourselves to only being subjected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu's authority. And this is not only for servants, this is for every single person, because this is not just limited to a servant, it could even be to the master, right? Somebody who's a master of other servants, so he may become subjugated to he feels that he's elevated. I have so many servants working for me. I run a big company. I have a big business of my own. And a person therefore becomes subjugated. He doesn't even realize it, but becomes subjugated to his own arrogance, right? Therefore, this mitzvah applies to every single Jew, that a person has to remember to free himself and subjugate himself just to Hashem. And he says, when is the time that we can best do this? That's on Shabbos. Shabbos is the time that we can do this. He quotes a Zohar. The Zohar says, on the pasuk in Yeshayahu, Perek Yud Daled pasuk Gimel says, "V'haya b'yom haniach Hashem l'cha." It'll come to pass that Hashem will allow you to rest. Me atzvacha, from your sorrow, mi rugzacha, from your shuddering, from your anger, min avoida hakasha, and from the hard work asher ubad b'cha, that you were made to serve. So the Zohar says, "B'yom haniach." The day that Hashem allows you to rest, that's a reference to Shabbos, right? We know Shabbos is the day of rest. It's a reference to Shabbos, and that ties back to that pasuk that we quoted in our parsha, the second pasuk of the parsha, which is Uvashvius Yetze L'chav Shechinim. On the pasuk means in the seventh year the Eved Ivri goes free, but it also means Vashvius also could refer to Shabbos, the seventh day instead of the seventh year. That on Shabbos, every single Jewish person can escape, can get out of any subjugation that he has been subjected to during the week, and he could rest from all of it, right? He could have a physical rest and a spiritual rest. During the week, people are busy. We have a lot of things to take care of, so we have our physical rest on Shabbos. But we're also during the 6 days of the week, we end up being subjugated to other things. We're worrying about business. We're worrying about family. We're worrying about health. We're worrying about a million things in our lives that we worry about. Shabbos is a time to rest from all of that, from all of those things that our minds are subjugated to during the week. And what do we do on Shabbos? Lisanig al Hashem, right? As we say in the Zmiris, that we delight in Hashem. All we think about is our service of Hashem on Shabbos. On Shabbos, we're freed from all of the things that hold us captive during the week. We free ourselves. We go free. We leave our avdus to other things, and we stop doing what we were commanded not to do in the second of the 10 Commandments, which is to not have other gods, the other subjugations, and we submit to the Ani Hashem Anochi Hashem Elekecha. And we see this tied together later on in the parsha in Parachav Gimel. So the pasuk there is talking about when we conquer the land. So in Parachav Gimel, beginning let's say with pasuk Chav Dalet, after we conquer the nations of Canaan, it's pasuk Chav Dalet says Leishishtach v'Leleihem, don't bow down to their idols, their gods. Loisavdem, don't serve them. V'Leisasek Masehem, don't do like their actions. Ki Hares to Harsem v'Shaber to Shaber Matzaveisehem, right? You should tear them apart. You should smash their pillars. And then Pasuk Chav Hei says, "Va'avadtem es Hashem Elekechem." You should serve Hashem your God. Uveirach es lachmacha, and then He will bless your bread, ve'esmeimecha, and your waters, ve'hasiroisi machla mikirbecha, and I will remove illness from your midst. So Hashem is tying this together. That if we remember, it's not just talking about idols. Of course, the pasuk is talking about idols, but it's not just talking about idols. It's saying if we take off all of the other shibudim, all of the other things that subjugate us, and we submit ourselves entirely to Hashem, and we recognize where our bread and where our water comes from, and where illness comes from, then Hashem says, then I'll take care of everything. That we have to constantly remind ourselves, even when we're in the middle of these things, of we're working for somebody, or we're doing something that we don't necessarily want to be doing, but we have to remember that this is not the ultimate, that the ultimate success and ultimate healing and ultimate everything comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Everything comes from Hashem. And we recognize that on Shabbos, because on Shabbos, what do? We stop everything. Whatever I was busy with, I could have been busy with the craziest week of my life. 2 minutes before Shabbos, I'm busy with it, and as soon as Shabbos starts, that all has to wait. Because at Shabbos, I recognize that all of that other stuff, even though I have to deal with it and I have to be responsible, but on Shabbos it all stops. Because on Shabbos I turn and I remind myself that everything comes from Hashem, and that I'm only an eved. My true avdus, my true servitude is only to Hashem. Everything else is just noise and is just illusion. And I have to remind myself every week. We have that opportunity on Shabbos to remind ourselves that we're servants to Hashem, and we're not servants to our pursuit of money, and we're not servants to all of our illicit desires, and we're not slaves to our egos, and we're not slaves to our desire for honor or to jealousy. We throw off the shackles of all of that servitude, and we serve only Hashem. And then Hashem promises us, it's right, the pasuk right before Shvi that we just quoted, which is Uveirach es lachmacha, and then Hashem says, and I will bless your bread, ve'esmeimecha, and your waters, vasiroisi machla mikirbecha, and I'll take away all illness. If we trust in Hashem, we put in our faith in Hashem, and we know that Hashem is our only address for anything that we need in life, then Hashem promises us He'll take care of all of that, and we'll have nothing to worry about. And we should take that idea into Shabbos as we go into Shabbos, and to work on that, and to remember that we are avodim, but we're avodim to Hashem. We have no other masters. Nobody else holds any sway over us. And with that, Shabbos will open up this storehouse and this relationship, and then Hashem promises us He'll give us everything. Uvashvi yetze lachavshi chinam. That's the promise that on the seventh day, with seventh year, but on the seventh day we will go free. We will be freed from all of our servitudes. I wish you all a great Shabbos.